afternoon. I'm Chaplain Sharieda Patterson, and the purpose of our time today is to discuss end-of-life care and to give you all some understanding of what to expect in what I'm calling the 11th hour. Ecclesiastes 3 states that for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under the heaven. And the first matter is a time to be born and a time to die. And at end-of-life care, that's what we are coming into balance with when we meet veterans and their families, that time of death. So what is it that we need to expect when we encounter a family or a veteran who is at the end of life? Well, the first thing that we can expect is that as a person gets closer to death, there are some signs that can be helpful for preparing yourselves as well as the families for the actual death event. The first thing that we want to pay attention to, of course, happens 1 to 3 months prior to the death of a person. You may notice withdrawals. You may notice changes in appetites. As it gets closer, 1 to 2 weeks prior to the death, you may notice disorientation. A veteran may become a little more disoriented than normal. You may be used to visiting him and having a conversation where they're very present, but as they get closer to death, one of the marked signs that they're getting closer is that they become a little bit more disoriented in their conversation. As well, there are some noticeable physical changes. 1 to 2 days or hours prior to the death, you may even notice a surge. We call it a rally. That's when everything may seem normal. That's what we're calling an energy or a rally. So 1 to 2 week signs are presented and they become more intense when we get into the last few hours. So our presentation today is going to be broken down into those areas: withdrawal, appetite changes, what to expect 1 to 2 weeks, what to expect 1 to 2 hours that lead up, and then finally the death event. So as we talk about withdrawal, this is the time when a veteran begins to understand and acknowledge that they are actually dying. It's when the person actually comes into the acceptance that death is really near. It's during that time that they begin to look more inward as opposed to keeping track of the world around them. So they begin to withdraw from things that they would normally aggress toward. They begin to withdraw from people. They begin to withdraw from the world around them. This is actually a time of separation. It's the beginning of marked separation. You may notice things like if they were accustomed to reading the newspaper or watching television, things that they used to be interested in. They may have been interested in visitors or people coming in. They are less interested now in interacting with the things that are common to them, and they're preparing themselves for separation. Everything outside becomes less important to them during this time, and their focus is more of what's happening on the inside. So the retreat turns from outward to inward. So at this time of withdrawal, they're moving from things of the outer world to things that are happening on the inside of them. This presence or this time is usually done with their eyes closed. You may notice that a veteran may spend more time in their beds just lying, not necessarily asleep, but they may just be reflecting. It's during that time that marked sleepiness occurs. You may notice that a veteran is sleeping more frequently or more often. Maybe they were more active sometime before, but as they begin to prepare for the death event, sleep is something that becomes more valuable. Maybe they stay in bed all day now, where you used to be able to have them come out and sit in a common area to do things, to interact with their families. You may hear families start saying things like they no longer want to participate in activities that they used to participate in. However, just understand that going inside requires a lot of work. As they prepare the separation, one of the things that we have to understand is that on the inside, there's only room for one. So one of the things you're going to notice is withdrawal. The next thing that you may note is that there are appetite changes. Food is a means of energizing our bodies. It's how we keep the body going and alive. And in essence, we eat to live. And when the body prepares itself to death, it's not only normal, but it's natural that eating begins to slow or even stop. This is one of the hardest concepts for families to accept, because eating sometimes is a social event. It's something that's done in community. So as a person gets closer to death, eating is something that they want to do less of. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happens is that physically their taste change. So they no longer have a taste for the foods that they used to eat. They no longer want to go out and eat in common areas. Their cravings may change. Maybe you've noticed a veteran who ate ice cream every evening. As they get closer to death, their taste changes and they no longer want the things that they craved for before. Food is harder to digest as a person gets closer to death. So soft foods is what we would traditionally move to. But I want you all to know that it's okay for them not to eat. There's an energy shift that's happening at this time, and a spiritual energy is now needed more so than a physical energy. And it's this spiritual place that they become able to reconcile, that they're looking to do more work with and for. This is a time when spiritual resources are most helpful. They're less interested in the things that are going on around, and they're more interested in making peace with the things that are going on internally. So appetite change, first withdrawal, and then you'll notice appetite changes. As a person gets into the 1 to 2 week range, disorientation becomes more noticeable. A dying person at this stage is sleeping most of the time, and the sleep is oftentimes consuming. They're not able to be awakened or aroused for substantial amounts of time, and if you can arouse them, it's difficult to keep them awake. There is a perceived balance between life and death at that time. Most will tell you that as they sleep, they're connecting more with their next life, and they're letting go of their present world. Confusion is noted. As a matter of fact, you might find that they talk to or about people that they may have encountered in the past. Here at the VA, one of the things that we know is that most, if not all, of our veterans have spent some time, depending on their age, in a conflict. So you might find that at the end of life, they're revisiting situations and scenarios that happened to them some time ago. They're speaking sometimes with members of their families or loved ones who may have died previously. They're making connection with an afterlife. Picking with bedclothes, agitation is a little bit more pronounced, flailing or random movements of their arms, and their focus becomes on the next world. As a matter of fact, what you'll notice is that they stop becoming present and start spending more time in that place or the next life. 1 to 2 weeks before some physical changes, when the body begins to lose its ability to maintain itself, you start seeing more incontinence. Blood pressure decreases, pulses change, temperature fluctuates between hot and cold. They complain of being tired and more weary. Skin color changes. Their nails and their hands all take on a new color as the body begins to prepare itself to die. You'll also see changes in their breathing. Respiration changes as the body prepares to die. It goes from a normal to almost a decrease or sometimes a cessation. It's not that they have died, they just require less energy now. And these changes are normally happen during sleep. You'll start noticing things like puffing, blowing of their lips as they exhale, congestion, or even a rattling. A lot of times as the body is preparing itself to die, things like swallowing become difficult. The brain sends less messages to digest food, so it becomes difficult for the secretions that the body produces to pass without being stuck in the throat, so you'll hear a rattling. They may cough, but there may not be anything that they expect. All of these things can go on, but they can go on too without some consistency. So what happens 1 to 2 days or hours before a person would die? Oftentimes what a family will experience is that state of final rally that I talked about. A person could go from being completely unarousable or awakened to a full conversation. They seem fully present. They're able to engage you. We call that a final rally. It's the body's final surge of physical energy. The person may talk clearly. The confusion that they had experienced may dissipate for a brief time, and they become more alert and oriented. They might request their favorite meal, where at a point they could not taste the food that they were eating. At this final rally, you may find that they start requesting meals that they once liked. They may also be more interested in visitors. This final rally, you'll find that they want to talk to people that they haven't seen. They want visitors. They want to commune with the community that they had become accustomed to knowing. This is when it's believed that the spiritual energy has showed up to assist with the transition. This is believed to be useful for a time of physical expression just before passing. Now, I have to tell you, a little bit of confusion comes in for a family at this final rally. The reason is, as a person is dying, most things are slowing down. So for a family, they're literally watching one of their loved ones begin to transition. And then this final rally is just that. It's the body's final attempt to be present with their loved ones. Sometimes it sends a false message to families, and they hang on to a hope that is sometimes a false hope. So one of the things that we have to do as we assist with that transition is to be mindful that it is just that, a final rally. 1 to 2 days or hours before, some of the other signs that you'll see becoming more intense will be restlessness. They call that terminal restlessness. It's a result of the body's lack of oxygen in the blood. So the body is no longer taking in the oxygen that it needs in its blood, and it's causing a restlessness. And you'll see that in these responses that are not even commanded. You may find a veteran just moving their arms, or you may see their eyes begin to blink, or their legs are twitching. It gives the impression that they're actually there and present, but in essence what it is the body's lack of oxygen in its blood. The eyes are semi-open, the vision is usually impaired, and eyes are usually glossy looking. One of the things you'll notice at end of life is that as they begin their transition, their eyes are actually a little more glossy than normal. Loss of continence, they'll begin to wet the bed more often. And in the last minutes, it's like being a fish out of water where there's not enough air for them to grasp onto. So what is our individual approach? Well, the first thing you have to understand is that each person is an individual. And while these are signs, they are just that. This is merely an attempt to help you to identify or to be aware of some of the signs. However, every person handles their preparation for death individually. However, remember that there is a lot of fear at the end of life. There's fear for what's going to happen to me next. There's fear of the business that hasn't been resolved. There's a lot of family fear that meets you at end of life. It's during that time where they begin to evaluate the business that they have, that they may have left undone. So what can we do? Well, one of the things that we can do is be a support and comfort. We can offer them a ministry of presence. What that means is that when we enter a room, our goal can be to set the atmosphere. We can assist them with spending quality time. One of the things that I've noticed at end of life is that you forget how to be. You forget how to be in relationship. Because of the fear, the focus is more on the medical things, the pain. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've become knowledgeable of is that sometimes pain is a smokescreen. We understand pain, but we don't understand death. So it's easier to focus on the pain and less about the fear associated with the dying event. So as chaplains, one of our goals is to set the atmosphere, assist them with spending quality time. It's difficult to be with someone knowing that they may be drawing their last breath. Reminisce. The best thing that we can do is to engage them in reminiscences. You know, they can begin to talk about the good times that they've shared, maybe good memories that they once had. It's an easy thing to look at the negative. It's sometimes at death more difficult to look at the happier times. It's okay to sit down and look at books and pictures. Sometimes when you walk in a room, once you scan the room, you notice that there are relics all over the room. I think oftentimes in a VA hospital, we become afraid to talk about a veteran's service time. You'd be surprised how many conversations have been guided through just a relic that's on the table, something that you've noticed as a piece of their history. Take turns sitting with a dying person. Every now and then we have to relieve the family of that angst. Maybe send them to get a coffee or find out when they're leaving and assure them that that person is not going to be alone, that you are there ready and available to sit with a dying person. And sitting with a dying person doesn't mean that you have to do anything spectacular. The only thing you have to do is be. Learn how to be comfortable with the silence. Learn how to be comfortable with allowing space. Offer the family a time for respite. Listen empathically and respond reflectively. The last thing that you want to do is to begin your journey, things that have hindered you along your way, and mix that with a family's opportunity to speak, and you listen empathically or reflectively. So be mindful of the things that you give as comfort. While scripture is beautiful, and it's a resource. While prayer is a resource, sometimes that's not what a family needs. Sometimes what they need is for you just to hold their hand and to just sit with them. Honor silence for the family, for the veteran. If you happen upon a veteran who has a strong religious faith, offer them an opportunity to participate in whatever it is that their faith tradition affords. If it's a religious poem, if it is a scripture, many of the veterans have enjoyed music over the years. Sometimes music is a good soother. Whatever their religious preferences are, that would be a time to offer that to a family. And among the best thing that we can give each other are memories. Henry Nouwen said that you don't have to say or do anything to make things better. Just be there as fully as you can. And then the things that matter most in all of our lives are not fantastic or grand. They are moments when we touch one another, when we are in the most attentive or caring way. Jack Cornfield said that. So in summation, the one thing I want for us to take away from all of this is that no situation is the same. However, the best thing that you can offer during the 11th hour is yourselves, your fully present selves. There are no magic words. Even if you've experienced death yourself, their situation is going to be just that much different than yours. So you don't have to look for magic words, because there are none. Sometimes time and silence is what's necessary. Understanding what the patient or what the veteran is experiencing, and understanding that they too have fears. While they're sleeping, sleep is not just for the sake of sleeping. That's actually a time of preparation for them. They're getting in touch with their next life. And we have to be mindful to honor that, because we never know what their life's experiences are. So if a dying person stops eating, some of the best way that you can honor them is by non-anxious presence. Just allow them not to eat, and encourage the family as well, because in their minds they think that they're starving. And the reality is the body just needs less. If they withdraw, it's okay. That means that your visits may not be filled with words. They may just be visits. And what's wrong with a silent visit every now and then? If you have the honor and the privilege to sit with someone as they draw their last breath, the best thing that you can offer from your own faith tradition is a prayer of some sort or kind words. That goes much further than an elaborate speech or a small sermon. Hold the hands of the persons that are there. Don't be afraid to be. In the skin that you're in, don't be afraid to be. And it's okay to offer an opportunity for permission to die. Because for some of the veterans that we have here, permission is the resolution that they need to make that final transition. I'm reminded of a time just recently when we had a veteran who had spent a large strained opportunity of time with his wife. They hadn't been together for several years. The family had been torn by this tattered relationship. And one of the things as the veteran began to make his transition that needed to happen was his spouse, his wife, needed to let him know that one, she forgave him, and that two, she loved him. And for him, that was all he needed. Immediately after she said the words, "I love you," he stopped breathing. So understanding that as a chaplain, sometimes you have to facilitate those courageous conversations wherein a child or a family member may have to come together for the sake of the person who is dying and just give them permission. It's okay to die. You'd be surprised the relief that then comes over one's face when they know that they have made peace on this side. They're more ready to make the transition to the other side. At the VA, there are many resources that are available. We have many pamphlets and books that can help to guide also your visits. I recommend also that you pick those up and take a look at them. They help to guide you more specifically to some of the signs and symptoms, some of the things that you can experience at end of life. Also, they also talk about bereavement support. We do have bereavement support here for the families of veterans who pass. So it is my encouragement that you take advantage of all of these resources, as they will be helpful to you as you minister to those who are at their 11th hour. Thank you.